Hey guys, how's it going? Let's go, man. We're about to jump into this video. Canada-U.S. relationship will not go back to what it was. Canada's ambassador to the U.S. said this. Let's see what they have to say. I know recently Donald Trump, he had a racist comment about Obama. He put a monkey or something. I didn't even see it. But if I see the video or something, I'm going to react to it. Doing some dumb shit. But let's see what this video is talking about, man. It's giving me anxiety, because there's nothing good coming out of this. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not good news. That our relationship will not go back to what it was. But maybe it can get better. Who knows? Let's see.
Tariffs, tension, and tough talk. It's one of the most volatile times in the relationship between Canada and the United States, and one of the most crucial. I'm Jackson Prosco in Washington. The West Block starts right now. We sit down with Kirsten Hillman just before Canada's longtime ambassador in the U.S. packs up and returns north. And
it's finished in Canada.
The Prime Minister says internal reviews of the North American trade agreement have wrapped up. Now Ottawa is bracing for talks with Washington as rhetoric coming out of the White House escalates.
I would not pick a fight going into USMCA to score some cheap political points.
We speak with a Canadian here in Washington who testified at a special trade hearing.
I will not pick a fight for some cheap political points.
She's been described as an iron negotiator with a velvet glove. Canada's first female and longest-serving ambassador to the United States is stepping down. Mark Carney called Kirsten Hillman an exceptional diplomat, and Justin Trudeau labeled her a true patriot. Hillman has guided the U.S.-Canada relationship through 3 U.S. administrations, not always an easy job.
Canada lives because of the United States, remember that.
Canada lives because of the strength of Canadians, because of the ingenuity and hard work of Canadians.
They'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that, and they did. They stayed a little off the front lines.
I think what's most important
this dude, Trump, boy.
Know what our Canadians have done.
Now, after 30 years of working for the Canadian government, Kirsten Hillman is returning to her roots. The diplomat is retiring, heading back north to spend some time in Alberta, where she grew up. Ambassador Hillman, thank you so much for your time. You've had the privilege of being in Washington for more than 8 years, including the last 6 as ambassador. What's your honest take of how things have changed between the first Trump term and the current Trump term?
Yeah, they've definitely changed. I think everybody sees that. I think there is a level of unpredictability that people see. It was in the first term, and I think it's greater now. But I think more importantly, there are some foundational aspects of our relationship with the United States and the U.S.'s relationship with the world that are being questioned now in ways that they weren't in the first term. I was talking to a colleague of mine recently. We used to use here in the embassy a big poster that we have that shows a hamburger. And this hamburger was designed to tell a very positive story about Canada-U.S. collaboration. So this hamburger was made from wheat grown in Manitoba and beef grown in Texas and tomatoes grown in Ontario and, et cetera. And we said, this is the strength of our relationship, is that we build things together, we keep our people fed together, we have these very efficient, supply chains together. And that was always a huge selling point. That was always something very, very positive down here. But now we see more and more, not everywhere, but we see more and more a sense of, no, that kind of integration, that's not what the U.S. is looking for. They're really looking for America first and America for America, and to do things more on their own.
Do you think the Canada-U.S. relationship can recover? I know Canadians sitting at home are so concerned about what's going on in this country. You must hear that all the time.
I think the Canada-U.S. relationship has changed and will not go back to what it was, at least for a very long time, if ever. I think people talk about, just a loss of trust, maybe, and that's a hard thing to build back. Again, this country is vast and diverse, and there are millions of Canadians and Americans who do things together every day: business, relationships, education. We have, we study together, we do all sorts of research together. There's all sorts of things. Our armed forces work together, our security services, our policing services. So there's tons of things that we do together every day, all day, and we will continue to do that. But I think Canadians are approaching the relationship as a whole in a little more clear-eyed and perhaps a little bit more wary. But it's good for us, it's good for us because we need to be sure that we are putting Canada and Canadian interests first, that we are ensuring that we're doing as much as we can for ourselves and not taking for granted some things that have been stable down here for a long time.
Where's that sort of line? Because you talk about, in one sense, this sort of being a prodding for Canada to do better, and the Prime Minister certainly has talked about expanding trade relationships beyond the United States. But on the other hand, you've got the Treasury Secretary and the State Department sort of entertaining Alberta separatists at the same time and getting involved in domestic Canadian politics. And so where's the line between genuine concern and this sort of wake-up call to do better as Canadians?
Well, I think we do both. I think that Canadians should be, I was saying how, there's a real focus here in the United States on America doing things for Americans. And there's a focus on that in Canada too, right? There are a lot of things, as I say, I think there are opportunities that have been provided to us, or impetus. There's been an impetus in Canada to maybe make some changes that we could have made a while ago that are important for our own economy. Interprovincial trade, large infrastructure projects, doing as much as we can to be our own best customer. Those kinds of policies are really, really important. Yes, there's trade diversification. Yes, there's investment diversification. But first and foremost, the kind of strong feelings of Canadian pride that have come out of this, I think, are excellent and important for us. As to how this government interacts with issues around Canadian sovereignty, I think that they would be wise to be very cautious and tread lightly there. But I guess what I would say here is I saw those comments, but I'm here every day, and my team is around this country every day and in all corners of this administration, and we are not hearing any particular interest in engaging at any broad level on these key domestic issues. I think that is, and hopefully there won't be, but there's not a lot of take up there.
Does that extend to trade as well, this idea that you might have...
Now, I know I did I can't remember which video that was, but there's a video circulating talking about how the Quebecans want to have their own separate country and not be a part of Canada. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on between, but they feel like there is two different worlds, and they want to separate things, just like he's talking about the Alberta separatists. I'm not too familiar with those up there in Alberta. If you guys can inform me, that would be great. But I've heard about Quebec trying to separate from Canada. Now, why? I'm really not sure, but I guess they don't see eye to eye on some things. But like I said in that video, in times like this, you have to put the whole of Canada first, because the whole of Canada, if Canada fails, everyone in Canada will feel it. You know what I mean? So separating yourself from that, it's not possible right now. And I think that you should try to unite and stick together until you guys overcome this situation that you're going through with the U.S. Because this is not the time to be trying to separate, and you're going through this with something bigger with the U.S. And I believe that's why she's saying, like, we're not really focused on that the domestic issues right now. We have bigger things at hand.
One or two people in the administration doing something, but that is not necessarily the official position of the administration.
So something that is crystal clear is that there is one person who decides American policy, and that's the President of the United States. He decides what is, what his government is going to do, and that is, there's really no questioning about that. So, but what he does have is he has teams of people who he has tasked with advancing issues. So on the trade front, we have the United States Trade Representative, Jameson Greer, who is our principal interlocutor on the CUSMA review, for example. And he's a fellow who is following the process that is set out by law for the United States in engaging in this review process. He's somebody I have known for many, many years, and he is a trade professional. So, we will work with him and Mexico will work with him to come to the best solutions possible. But the ultimate decision, and everybody in the U.S. administration from top to bottom will say this, ultimately they recommend to the president and he will decide. I mean, that's true with any leader, but it's certainly true with President Trump.
As you think of your own personal situation and heading back to Canada, but also your time in the United States, what do you want Canadians to think about their American neighbors right now that extends beyond what they may see on the news and beyond what's happening just in Washington?
That's a great question, and I appreciate you for asking it, because I have been here, as you say, for 8.5 years. I've traveled this entire country. I've met every governor. I've been top to bottom, side to side. And Americans are, diverse. They are doing all the same kind of things Canadians are doing. They're on factory floors. There's farmers. There's researchers. There's people working in office towers. There's every kind of American, and ultimately they want what everyone wants. They want sort of a good life for their family. They want a good future. They want some stability, and I think that's why our ties are quite strong, right? And historically and geographically. So what I would say to Canadians is, it's essential that we not lose sight of the fact that this relationship has changed and will, I think, as I said, be changed for a long time. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of good things that we can do in the United States with our American friends, and that there aren't a lot of Americans who are deeply committed to the Canada-US relationship. And I will sort of give as an example this. We have had more high-level visits to Canada from senators, from CEOs, from governors in the last 8 months than I think we have had in my entire tenure. So there is a huge contingent of Americans who want to come to Canada to say, we appreciate you, we appreciate this relationship, we want to make sure it stays strong. So I think we need to have both things, a little bit of open-eyed understanding of how to best take care of ourselves, but also realize that this is a big and diverse place.
Yeah, and we've seen you out state to state building those relationships. Hopefully they endure past whatever political chaos is happening in Washington. With that in mind, do you have any advice for your successor, Mark Wiseman, as he takes the job?
Well, I think it's exactly that. I think he needs to be building relationships here in Washington for sure, very important. But not just with the administration, with the Hill, there's a lot of people of influence in this city that are not, let's just say, in front of the camera. They're behind the scenes, really building those networks, very important. And then getting out of Washington, because America is a lot more than Washington, D.C., and understanding that can be extremely helpful. And those people across this country, they do have an influence on federal policy, and they are people we can turn to help us advance projects, solve problems, and just keep some level of continuity.
As a final question, do you have a fondest memory of your time here?
Oh gosh, I have so many fond memories. We have so many friends and so many wonderful people that we've met. I have to say, traveling the country, hiking in Arizona, and in West Virginia. I like to hike.
West Virginia,
just meeting people on
Appalachian Mountains.
Farms on my family. One side of my family is a farming family. I've loved that. I love getting out and meeting Americans all over the country. I've really appreciated that. I have found nothing but kindness. I have found nothing but kindness and welcoming arms in all of these interactions, even if we didn't totally agree on everything.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Sure.
Thank you so much for having a chat.
They're not going to be disrespectful. A lot of the disrespectful ones are on the internet, you know, behind those keyboards. But people are... One thing I can say about Americans, they are welcoming and they're helpful, for sure. But Trump, that man foolish, bruh. She letting y'all know, though, because she said it's a diverse place and it's big. People are nice and everyone does not agree with what Donald Trump's doing. At the end of the day, they can recommend stuff, but it's him who takes the final decision. As she said, man, I think that's an important thing to stick home, is that he does what he wants to do, right or wrong. So, but I think you guys know that, man. We talk in the chat and we've had these conversations. You guys know that the Americans don't feel the same way he does. A lot of you do. A lot of people say, well, they voted for him. People make mistakes. And a lot of the people that voted for him regret it today. That's facts. But anyway, I'm going to see you guys in the next video.